I am here with Casey Cunningham. And
Oh,
Casey, I don't know how long I've known you, but it's been a bit.
it's
And
been a bit.
yeah, Gabby and I have always known you as Rob as like tremendously successful family,
Mm,
mother.
yeah.
Your girls, we adore them. But as I've gotten prepared for this podcast, you have this amazingly successful business in Zenix. And so, like, could you just give your quick intro? And then I want to dive into, I really want to talk today about values.
Oh,
So I hope
wow.
you're going to love that. But
Yeah, I love that.
yeah, can you
Love
just
that.
tell everybody who you are?
I'll say, gosh, where do we start, right? Who am I? Let's see. I am blessed beyond
Uh-huh.
measure as a human being, as a mom, a wife, a business owner, but uh, I'm, I'm God's child. I'm trying to
We
be
are.
directive and to figure out what my purpose is, like
Yeah.
everybody else. And I think I'm in the lane of where I'm supposed to be, and that is empowering and nurturing and loving others so that they
Hmm.
can find the best in themselves,
Okay.
and really helping them perform at the highest level that they were created to do.
And what is Zenix?
A sales and leadership performance company where we help people through a platform of our system. Our system is really
Hmm.
specific of training people specifically in their niche,
Okay.
holding them accountable through the training to make sure that they actually adopt the skills and the mindset to succeed. And then coaching. So it's training, accountability, and coaching is the
Okay.
system. And we pour into others through some very experiential learning, a really different, unique way of impacting the mindset to get you to want to lean in, not just come to a training class, but to actually look at yourself, look at where you're
Hmm.
going, and give you the roadmap to get there. So that's pretty much who we are
It
at
is,
Zenix.
it's gone pretty good, hasn't it? Could you brag a
Oh,
little bit about some of
oh
your
no, no, no,
clients and how
no.
you've done?
Super blessed,
Yeah.
super blessed. In the journey, I mean, it's been 23 years.
Yeah.
I think is this 24, 23 years that we've
You,
been in business.
you fast track to success.
Yeah,
Overnight success.
every time somebody goes, oh yeah, overnight success. I mean, yeah, sort of,
Yeah.
not really. Yeah, through the 23 years, there's been so many learnings and so many blessings through it. But yeah, we've had, the ability to do business with 600 companies in a
Hmm.
year, and to be a platform for them. So really, really blessed.
That's great. Now, want to talk a little bit of like the origin story. And I guess we need to start with your mom. Yeah,
Oh
your mom
Lord.
means a lot to you, but
Mm,
but I want to hear like she poured into you some values,
she did.
but somehow along the way you were a loan officer,
Right? I was a salesperson.
and
Yeah.
someone something in you from your family made this leap to be a founder. Maybe you could talk a little bit what you
Ooh,
saw, why
yeah.
that was within you.
I think probably from the time I was a child, I had two parents, both my parents. My mother was a school teacher, and
Hmm.
my father was an entrepreneur, so he owned
Okay.
his own business. It was called Foreign Car Repair Shop. So he was a mechanic, but who
Uh-huh.
owned his own business. And so, I remember the freedom he had, but didn't really understand it. But I wanted to be my mom, right? Mom's the
Hmm.
teacher. But when he passed away, I was 9 years old. And whew,
Wow.
still,
Single
it's still,
moms. Yeah.
back then you don't get counseling. Probably still need counseling right now. But 9 years old, and to watch my mom struggle.
Mm.
I mean, struggle. Was widowed with 5 kids at the age of 41, um, and we couldn't afford to eat. I mean, it's just I mean, I'm truly one of those stories that just like how did I make it?
Yeah.
I give
Well,
all grace to God and my mother. She poured into me, but along the way, every time I said I want to be a school teacher, she said no. And I'm like, Mom, I love kids, and of course I wanted to follow in her footsteps. And if you haven't lost a parent, you may not understand the magnitude and the fear of losing the second one, because you're like,
mm,
what happens if she goes away? And at 9, you're real vulnerable. But um, I remember her pouring into me, and anyone who's listening to this, and hopefully you really consider, your words have weight and they have
mm,
meaning and they have vibration, frequency, but they have impact. And
mm,
her words were powerful, where you could be anything you want to be. You're going to be the best at whatever you do.
mm.
You're special. So, I just believed her because she was
Yeah.
my mom.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, well, she can't be wrong because
Yeah.
moms are our heroes. Our
Yeah. For
dads are our
sure.
superheroes.
Yeah.
And I remember never thinking I would fail, never in any form or fashion, only because my mother poured that into me. No arrogance, not walking in going, I'm really better. It was like, whatever I go to, I'm going to be the best at it. And so because of the struggle I saw and the financial struggle and just the pain, I remember in her words saying, just that constant reminder, and I'm going to age myself a little bit. We only had one TV, and I don't know if anybody can relate to that, but I remember watching a program called Richie Rich. I don't know if you remember Richie Rich. Rich, no, he was the little blonde kid. Richie Rich, if you don't remember.
He had a robot.
Oh, he did have. I think he had a robot, right? I just remember. Yes, he had Richie Rich. But if you remember the premise of Richie Rich, he had it all. He had money. He had a family. But he wanted to give back.
Oh.
And I remember telling my mom, I'm going to be Richie Rich one day. And she'd say, yes, you can. And that stayed with me. And so when it was time to sort of embark on my career, something happened where I triggered that said, I wanted a sales job. I was like, okay, hey, why sales? Well, there's no limit on what you can make. And I was like, the harder I work, the more money I make. This is a perfect analogy. And I'll bet on me. I know I'll outwork someone just because, again, my mom instilled this unbelievable work ethic because she had to have 2 jobs after my father passed. Yeah. She'd teach in the day and go to J.C. Penney's at night. And I just watched her work. Wow. And so that's why I got into sales originally, was I wanted to be able to make money. Yeah. I didn't want to live the poverty and lifestyle my mother lived. And I always knew I'd work for myself. I don't know why.
Oh, really? So you knew you'd leave when you took the job.
Well, I kept getting promoted after I went into sales, and I was really, really blessed by that. I'm a product of other people. I mean, my mother poured into me, other people poured into me. And when I finally, I kept getting promoted, and I finally got to number 2 in a company. We were doing about $4 billion a year. The president wasn't going to go anywhere. And I got to a point where, and I sincerely believe if you don't have high degree of respect for who you report to, you shouldn't work for them.
Okay.
And so I decided it was time to go after I'd accomplished this amazing career, and I didn't have a job. I just left. I resigned.
Did you have the idea?
No, didn't even have the idea. I took a leap of faith, left a huge, huge paying job. People would think I was insane. And so when I left, I resigned with as much grace and gave a few months' notice. In my position, I had the second number. Almost everybody reported to me in the company. And when I left, I just said it's time for me to go.
Interesting.
It is time for me to go. And for 3 months, I sat on the back porch and I prayed and I wrote down every possibility of a career I could have. And when I wrote it down, it was open my own company, open my own training company, go be a trainer, director, buy a company, run a retail shop. I literally wrote it all down. And then I realized one day after 3 months, drinking coffee, sitting down, I walked in, told my husband we had just gotten married. And he's like, if you don't want to work, you don't have to. I'm like, are you kidding? We were raising my nephews at the time. Okay. So I had 2 nephews. We got them when they were 4 and 10.
Oh, my word.
I said, I think I'm going to do what I thought. When I was at my highest in my career and when I had the most fulfillment was when I had built the training team inside this company. Okay. And I'd walk in and I would watch the lights. And I'm like, this is what I'm supposed to do.
Is that teacher ringing in the back? Okay.
And there you go to my mom. So here I am. My mother told me, to teach kids at night, to not do the career she had because there was such limited income and I would be in a poverty level. And she didn't want me to follow in her footsteps. Wow. And she goes, I don't want you to suffer and to struggle the way Mama struggled. So here I am, a now teacher. Yeah. And so I'm impacting children in a much different manner because I believe if I can impact the parents, I can impact the kids.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And so when a man or a woman comes to our programs and they walk out with more confidence, more competence, and they're able to provide for their families in a better way, quite often people will say that, there's a second part of Zenix, and it's that personal piece that we touch. And hopefully I do it through the way we lead as people and as family members ourselves. But that's sort of the origin of Zenix. When I walked in and told my husband, I said, I think I have an idea. And he said, what? I said, I think I need to follow what gives me glory and gives me. Right.
I just love that concept. You're teaching people a new skill. You're giving them a skill that makes them money and making money. And now we buy a house and I get married and I can provide for my kids. Sure. And then that just that just
Sure.
keeps giving.
Yeah. It's a blessing. I
Yeah,
mean, literally, I get to be a hopefully a light for other people. But
for
when you
sure.
consider, most people don't change, and this is an interesting fact, and I learned over the years, they either lack the will or they lack the skill.
Right.
And so we get to impact the skill, but we've really are impacting the will much more than people realize. Because I can't teach you if you don't want to learn.
Right.
And so one of our biggest differentiators in the market is that you can't just throw training in front of someone, and so that's part of our process, which is really unique.
That's interesting. Okay, I want to get into that. So how'd you get the first customer? Because you're walking around, you got all you have at this point is blessing from your husband that it's okay.
Well, when I had built the training inside that company,
Mm-hmm.
it got a reputation.
Okay,
And
so people that came out of here were
yeah,
well trained.
so they were the company that I built originally. Inside that company, the training, it was 9 weeks long, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., 5 days a
Oh
week.
wow.
That didn't include homework. Test every single day. One out of every three people were going to get kicked out by the time it was done. I would say, look to your left, to your right. One of you won't be here. It was my husband was like, you should have been in the military. I'm like, oh, well, sweetheart, I don't mean to be too tough, but the reality is the world's tough.
Yeah.
And we're trying to build the top guns of the future.
Mm-hmm.
And so that got out. People in the market started to hear about the training and that it was creating these top guns. So when it was time to open Zenix, I went to some people that knew my reputation. I said, hey, I'm the previous designer and developer of that training program. So I leveraged the brand. And I said, that was me. I'm bringing it to the market in a generic sense. And the first person who wrote me a check was Wells Fargo.
That's not a bad first client.
It wasn't a big check, but it was the first check. Because at the launch party, one of the guys who had worked for it before, he says, I'd write a check for you anytime. I want to be the first check for you. And he handed me $5,000. So it wasn't big, but it was like
I love it.
A real carrot to say, hey, what you're doing is going to matter. So.
And right away, did you know you had something? Were other people coming? I mean, tell me the ups and downs.
Well, I started thinking I'm going to just stay in Georgia for 5 years, right? And I'm just going to get really anchored here because I knew, go deep, not wide.
Mm-hmm.
And about 3 months later, this executive called me and said, hey, why don't you come have lunch with me? And I'm in the middle of, again, building the company, and I've got all these students, and I show up, and he's in
you CEO, trainer.
Yeah, I'm everything. I do have a trainer still. I have one trainer, and I think I have one admin. And I walk into this room. I'll never forget. And I shake his hand. I'm shaking the wrong man's hand. And I'm calling him the wrong name the whole time. And I'm like, oh, my God. But anyway, there's a whole room of suits. And he goes, yeah, I said, it's so funny that I'm meeting you. And he goes, what? I said, I just taught my students how to sell against you. He goes, good, role play. I'm like, oh, no, here we go. So I role played, and I told him how we did it. And he just looked at me and he said, okay, I want 100 students up and down the East Coast. And I looked at him and I went, we can do that. And I'm thinking, oh, my God, I have no idea. Outside the state of Florida and Georgia, what all the different regs and laws, etc. I came back to the office.
Mortgage, right?
Yeah, this was the mortgage industry at the time. Compliance. So I came back to the office and said, we got work to do to wash our materials, make it generic, make sure it applies to all the states. And I exploded overnight without meaning to. And that was all based on that one meeting. And then because of the nature of the industry I was serving, they changed jerseys a lot. Well, every time they changed jerseys, they'd take me with them. So I didn't have to do a whole bunch of marketing. They would go, have you heard about this company? And so we were growing organically. So that was that's sort of how we, you grew from referrals. I grew straight from referrals. Way to grow. Right. I mean, you can't ask for anything better than warm referrals, right? So we started growing up and down the East Coast. Then all of a sudden it went to the West. And so all of a sudden I was hitting all the states and people were traveling from all over the country for a 4-week So I took that 9 weeks. I was like, okay, that's not going to work for most of the people that don't know me. So we did a 4-week intense boot camp, like shuttles back and forth to the hotels, show up at 7 o'clock in the morning, go till 6 o'clock at night. You have homework. Kick you out, which was unheard of any training company, that they would actually require you to perform to stay in, and no refund.
No refund.
No refund. So we would tell everybody the first day you arrived, on their desk was a piece of paper, number 2 pencil, and a test. If you failed it, you had to leave. And we would make people leave. And that became part of our reputation, that we were truly had standards.
Yeah.
It wasn't just about pushing people, but that there was a standard we expected.
Yeah.
And that, and you had to apply to get in.
Yeah.
So we created some real uniqueness.
Some barriers.
And
to get in.
I didn't realize how fast that it would take off. I mean, I was like, this is working.
Yes.
And the industry was really good to us and so it really blessing. So that's how we got Wells Fargo. Who would have thought, right?
Wow, that's so interesting. It's like, crazy. Somebody, but then you hear these stories, and I know it wasn't easy. Okay, so one thing I know, I just understand it. Yeah,
making copies at 3 a.m. at it wasn't easy. I don't know if I'd recommend it for anybody to do. I remember bootstrap it the way I did it.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm gonna make payroll.
I would not bootstrap it again, but I would definitely give a little more resources to it. But it's what I needed to do at the time. I figured it out. So
that's
a lot of learnings there.
One thing I love about your company, I just going through your website, your social posts, everything's value driven. Mm-hmm. Everything's about your values. Mm-hmm. Even your name. I don't know if you want to explain that story. Probably your call signs have something to do with that. So maybe you want to talk about the call signs. Maybe you want to talk about your values. I'll leave it to you.
You tell me wherever you want to go.
Okay, so tell me about the name, and then how does that? Why are values so important to you? And then I'll know why I say it's important as a marketer, but
right. Zenix the name is definitely, you'll appreciate this. You're a marketer, so you'll love the origin of it. Have I ever told you the origin?
I just saw it on your website, so
So I'll give you a little backstory for anybody who's not on the website, because it is an interesting factor. I wanted a unique name. Right. I did not want to name it after myself. Yeah. Because I had a contest that said, "What should I name my new company?" And they were like,
"Terrible."
Yeah, it was terrible. Oh, I had Camp Casey. No, the best one was Professional Mortgage Services, and I'm like, well, that's PMS. Oh. That's not a good name. No, we're not going to do that. And then, so I had, the Cunningham boot camp. I was like, no, I don't want my name in it. I don't know why I didn't want it, but I did. And I said, this isn't about me. I want it to stand the test of time. So I told you my husband and I were raising our nephews. They came to us when they were 4 and 10. And we were at a football game in the stadium, and I was sitting next to this marketing lady. You'll so appreciate this, because I'm like, hey, I'm building a company, and I heard you're in marketing. Do you have a name? She goes, swear to God, she goes, make up a word. I'm like, okay.
Is that what marketers do?
Right? How do you make up a name? And I must have looked completely puzzled, and she went, I'll help you. I was like, you will? She goes, take me to lunch. I'm like, I'll take you to lunch. So at lunch, she said, I'm going to ask you one question that will help me determine your name. And I was like, okay. She goes, what do you want people to say about you and your company after they experience your products and services? And I went, excellence, integrity, quality, service, Lexus, Nordstrom. And as a result of us, they lead more productive lives, personally and professionally. And she looked at me and she said, everything you just said. And she puts her hands on her head. It's all about excellence. It begins and ends with excellence. And she writes the X's down.
Oh, my word.
And she goes, it begins and ends with excellence, everything you just said. And I just said, yes. And then she said, I don't know what I'm going to put on the inside. And I said, well, I have a little Puerto Rican mother who taught me from the time I was a little good, be your very best, be your very best. And all I could ever hear her say is that through excellence, there are infinite possibilities in your life. You just have to pursue excellence. And I just said, through excellence, there are infinite possibilities. And she said, the IN. And so she said, I don't want it to exist in the world. I'm like, okay. So she wrote down XINIX, went and looked it up. It was a disinfecting technology company in Switzerland. Okay. So she goes, let's put 2 N's. It's more balanced anyway. So that's how the name came out. So the X's stand for excellence. The IN stand for the infinite possibilities in your life when you have excellence, and you just have to pursue it no matter which way it looks.
That is so great. Because this is before all the Simon Sinek, start with your why.
Oh, yeah. This is way before that.
Which is so great, because I think in this world of fast media, social media, everyone's trying to be genuine online, but what you're doing is our values are not only front and center on our website, but they're who Rob and I are as
Yes.
a family,
Mhm.
and this is what is in our curriculum, and when the people are alumni after this is what they're going to be.
I certainly hope people see that and
Yeah.
feel that, because the alignment, we've really been blessed. We've won, I don't know, 29 culture awards as a company.
Wow.
And that was not important to me from an ego, but from a standard of saying to other executives, we know when you choose us that we're an extension of you. And we want you to know we understand how to feed and to nurture your culture, because your culture is ultimately everything for your company. So that has been really important.
Because how many vendors come in and just give me the check and let me check get out of here, right?
And I've done my due diligence on the competitive landscape, and I just go, okay, I hope people see from our social that we care.
Right.
Because if you care, you'll get the results. If you don't care, you're just getting the paycheck, right? Yeah. And so mine is really purpose driven, to say, really discovering what does the client want, need. And 9 times out of 10, he wants bigger performance, better outcomes.
Yes, right.
Well, that's through people, right? Maybe tech stack, marketing pieces, but ultimately it's going to go through some of your people.
Yeah.
And so you have to pour into your people.
Right.
And the investment that you make in your people, I can't tell you how many times I get a phone call that says, we've tried it before and it didn't work. And I go, you're in the right place, because I know what they were missing. But, we're really, thank you I'm hoping out on social people see the values are there, and that they are.
You have to try, but I think if you built up 20 plus years of client referrals and it makes total sense. So when you come in, and now I know you've gone well past mortgage, you do healthcare, you do finance, you do all kinds of industries. But when you come into these sales development offices, what is the one thing you keep seeing wrong over and over again?
Oh my goodness! So, for the management team or the sales team?
Please talk about that. Whatever you want to talk about.
The first one.
How can people? I just want people to get better.
Listen. And every time I talk to a sales group, then let's start with the salespeople, because everybody will go, is it their process? Is it their scripts? Yeah. I go, the number one challenge you have from your sales team is their mindset. And if they don't believe in themselves, they are never going to achieve greatness. And how much do you pour into how they think? You don't know their stories. But quite often, when I see a salesperson who's average, they think they're average. The top guy thinks he is. And this has been proven in science as well, right? What you think and what you believe you achieve. Right. They have to change what they believe. Everything else will fall into place. I think about when I was a salesperson, I was a young salesperson. I mean, I had the worst boss possible, right? Oh my God. And I could go through all the reasons, but it didn't hold me back.
Yeah.
But it holds some people back because they blame the boss.
Yes.
And so, I speak often about the 3 most powerful words. And if I can get every salesperson, every executive, every human being to own the words, it will shift their outcomes. And it's been proven. And when you really pause and you go, what are the 3 words? It's like, I am responsible.
Oh my gosh. So this is not related at all, but I went to one of these health summits and the guy goes, everybody, what's wrong with the nutrition system in America? And it's like, oh, well, the supply line, or nothing's organic. He's like, no, you're the problem.
You're the problem.
You choose what goes in your mouth.
You look in the mirror. You look in the mirror and go, I am responsible. It takes away all victimhood. It takes away the accusation, the pointing fingers, and says, I'm responsible for where I am, where I'm going.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not responsible for what happened to my childhood, but I'm responsible for how I respond to it and react to it and take the good from it, take it in. But the minute a sales team owns it, and then they own it, they win.
And to keep it, right? One thing I noticed, I ran outbound teams for forever.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. So the first thing I noticed, about that 3-month mark, that phone started to get this back when we're doing phone.
Yeah. Remember the phone, it's got to dial right.
For some reason, it got really heavy.
I know, right?
It got heavier and heavier. And I was like, wow, your activities. I mean, because it was at least 50 dials a day.
Yeah.
Right. And top guys were doing 100. could you do it for a whole year? Those are the guys that went on to like the account executive role and then like kept that activity. And but like it carried over those guys, gals too. A lot of great saleswomen that would carry that over. So I don't know. Do you teach kind of like that stick to itness and that belief?
Absolutely. How do you get into the routine, into the habits, into the mindset that is sustainable and to keep it? So that's one of the things that makes us unique is we do accountability, right? Training, accountability, and coaching.
Right.
So we're not a one and done. So typically our partnerships are a year to 2 years. And if you really want sustainable change, you need to do it over a couple of years.
Right.
It's like going to the gym. You go to the gym one time, you might feel good for the moment, but are you really going to get stronger? So it's the same correlation. So we do that. And again, most of our terms are a year to 2 years. And then people don't want us to leave because they get hopefully hooked in, right? Every single time that,
love that.
Hey, we really want to keep the rhythm going. And you get new people in, and it only takes one person to mess up an entire team. So you have to make sure you're constantly pouring into each person. So
you said you mentioned something for sales leaders. Do you have tips for?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, absolutely. Well, one of the things that resonates with them all the time when I say, why your salespeople don't change, lack of will, lack of skill, but let's go to you. Are you wanting to change, right? And do you have the skill to change? Most, unfortunately, leaders today have been put into that role with a title, but not necessarily any kind of directive. And so we have everything from what we call the emerging leader to the transformational leader and how to truly build the culture of excellence. But the number one challenge for them is quite often the belief in themselves, like the salesperson, but they don't pour into themselves. They want us to come in and fix their salespeople.
Yes.
Right? Can you come fix my salespeople? And I was like, hey, can I ask what have you been doing relative to your sales team? And quite often they'll go, they're not consistent enough. They're not making enough dials. Their script is wrong. And I go, well, let's talk about how you're coaching them. Because one of the things that we pride ourselves in is we'll teach the salesperson while we're teaching the leader so that we can come alongside them and then let them take over. Because ultimately I am building you for a long term, not to have to be dependent on us, right? You're trying to build them.
Yeah.
But if I would tell any executive listening ever is, have you really trained your sales leaders to be sales leaders?
Yeah.
Or did you just give them a role because they were a top sales guy?
Yeah.
Right? The top sales, the problem. They might not. Yeah. And so we've done we do a whole thing called Explore X, where we do an exploration process as to what do the leaders want versus what do the sales want, where are their gaps, so we can identify and pinpoint exactly where they need help.
Yeah.
And that creates credibility with the sales team because we're addressing what they want to hear as well. And the leader helping him as well. So,
we have a lot of CMOs that follow us. So do you have a recommendation to marketing people how to best engage with sales?
Oh my gosh. Yes. And I've had the privilege of having both CMOs and CSOs working for me. And the first thing is they've got to really trust each other. Inherently trust. The first question is, what are the goals together? Not what are yours, what are mine, what are we going to do together? It's the traditional finger pointing, right? Sales to admin, sales to marketing. And remember that whole thing is I am responsible. If I'm responsible for the sales performance as the CMO, and the CSO saying I'm responsible for the marketing performance, you work together. The more you work together, the better your outcome. Unfortunately, there's the constant finger pointing. And that's probably, by the way, that's not allowed in my company. And that's you're not allowed to talk about each other in any kind of derogatory manner. You work as a team. And I just think that there's this lack of relationship building. Hey, you're in a new role. How much do we really get to know one another?
And it's top down. I think just like what you said, what are the business goals? And everything below that should be.
And you got to come to it together, collectively together. There's nothing worse. And I know if you're a marketing person that you get all these leads in and the salespeople don't follow up. And then there's this big discussion, like I got all the leads, they're not doing the follow up. And quite often.
And sales goes, those leads are crap.
They're terrible leads. I don't even know where they are. I haven't seen them. It's like they're not quality leads. I'm like, okay. The reality is if everybody says I own where I am and I own the outcome, and I also own being honest with my peers, right? Because talking badly or junk about them doesn't solve the problem. So to me, it's all about the relationship and building trust among each other and that massive amount of communication. And I probably pride myself on more on being a communicator to my team and my team talking to each other and creating forums where they're required. Like I do a lot of little things that have gotten us, I think, the culture awards that create that the trust and the relationships. Like I do a lot of one-off things that people would be surprised. Like I open meetings with icebreakers that are fun and things that get my team connected. Because I mean, you got to get to know each other, especially in this new world of remoteness. Quite often,
it's so hard,
really hard to do.
Yeah,
really hard to do. So we teach all over the country, remote and live, and you can't just jump into a meeting because you're missing the water cooler talk. You're missing the connection piece where we used to be able to hold arms, hold hands and stuff. So you have to create a safe place for people to do that.
Is getting a call sign in that? Team building.
I know, yeah. We have call signs at Zenix. That my husband was ex-Air Force, as you know.
Yes.
And he gave me a call sign before I opened the company.
You got it.
Yeah. He and his buddy decided to give me a call sign. I won't give you the exact origin of it because it might be a little controversial. But so I am Blade. But when I opened Zenix, when I had the old company that I built the training inside, I actually had all the rooms, Paris Island, Miramar. I mean, everything was military. My husband, it made him nuts. He goes, "You're mixing Army and Air Force and Navy. I can't take it." So when I opened Zenix, I said, sweetheart, I think we should model the aviation industry. Because if you think about it, pilots, our planes just don't fly out of the air.
Right.
So they're well trained. And what I learned from my husband, besides the fact he said, you should have been in the military, he's like, he explained to me how they were trained. And I'm like, well, that's exactly what we're doing. He goes, that's why I'm telling you is we would train people on the knowledge, which was ground school, the skills, which was flight school, and the disciplines, which was officer school.
Oh,
so we have a program that's got ground school, flight school, and officer school. And officer school, by the way, is when you get in the cockpit and when you actually take off. And so when I opened Zenix, I said to him, I said, I think I'm going to keep sort of the same persona I had in my other company, but I think I'm going to keep the call signs because that was really the students loved it.
Yeah.
And so now at Zenix, every new employee gets a call sign, and their call sign is based on 3 things. It's real simple. It has to be short.
Yep.
It has to apply. Now in the military, you have to hate it.
Yes.
I was like, hey, no, it has to be cool.
Yeah.
So it has to be short, apply, and be cool. So there's a whole process for you to submit your call sign into a team, and we all vote on it. And so it's community, and we have a lot of fun with it. It's super special. The minute you get your call sign, there's a ceremony with the X. So it's crazy.
Oh, I love that.
We call everybody gets called by their call sign. Like I just left Beacon and I talked to Boomer this morning, and I had Point, and Beacon is a beacon of light.
Yes.
And he's the beacon of our company, right, to put out there.
Director of marketing.
Director of marketing. Major props to Beacon. Love that man. Point is my chief of staff. She's my right arm. She was a point guard.
Okay.
Or a point in volleyball, not guard. She'll kill me. And so it always has some correlation to it, but it's fun. I'm telling you, every client wants their call sign. They're like, how do I get a call sign?
Yes.
They'll go nickname. I go, it's a call sign, but it's okay. It's like, well, we'll give you one by the time this conversation's over because we're going to be watching for and then we'll ask, what do you like to eat? What do you like to do for fun? What are things that you love? And it always comes out. Some people it's instant. Some people it takes months for us to figure it out. But once they submit it, and they might submit 3, we massage it around, we have fun, but it creates community. I can't tell you how many executives I've given call signs to who love it, who are like, now they're part of our team and part of our family. Ex-employees, people that have left, that God has given them another path. They take their call signs with them, so we retire them out. We will not give another call sign to somebody. So.
Do you have a favorite book?
I'm reading an amazing book right now. I'm reading 3 amazing books, actually, all the same time. I'm reading one on humility. The actual title is Humility, and it is an amazing book about, who you are and whose you are. Another one, Atomic Habits, amazing book. Creature of Jekyll Island, I've read that one. I'm coming back to it. That's about the Federal Reserve and what's happening. What else is on my desk right now? Atomic Habits is an amazing book. Oh, there's another one I'm reading right now called Believe.
Okay.
So I have a nephew who's, how old is he? 36 years old now, the young man I raised. And he and I read every Sunday night.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Look at
We
you.
meet we talk on FaceTime, and we read the chapters. What did he learn? What did I learn? So
Just more often,
I
I'll get
know.
caught up
Yeah.
in all
Super
the
cool.
things happening
Super
in
cool.
Cunningham's
Yeah,
lives.
super
So.
cool. Really blessed.
Anything else you want to talk about?
No, I'm just really just honored to just be here.
Oh my
You know,
gosh. Yeah,
it's sort of
thank you.
surreal for me right now, but
Yeah.
where I am in my life
You
and
just get to
what
pass
God's
this
done.
knowledge on to to everyone else, and that's just
I'm
great.
hoping that legacy that we started with
Mhm.
is that we left a great imprint on the world.
Mhm.
And that
Yeah.
we help people achieve excellence in their life.
Well, you did. Yeah, that's great. How can people find you?
Xinix.com.
Xinix.com? Yes.
XINNIX.com. Two N's. Yeah,
It's a
XINNIX.
palindrome.
It
That's
is. It is a
great.
palindrome for sure.
Also, I love the X's. I love the palindrome. Lots of good marketing. Great.
I know. You're thinking
Yeah,
of
I
it.
love
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Well, we had the X before X
Yes.
was out. Just to
Yes.
know, so you know.
Yes. Yes.
And it happens to be the same X. So I was like, okay, well, we were first, but that's okay.
Yeah.
So
Maybe you can
it
sue
is sort of funny. Right. Yeah. We'll do that.